Good day and welcome to another edition of Insight. We are privileged to have a man who knows a whole lot about media, who knows a whole lot about how the mind works, deals with a lot of changes and what have you. We're talking about none other than LEACHIM SEMAJ. Welcome, sir.
My pleasure.
You know, I asked you what was your title these days, and I was knocked off my chair when you told me. Chief Ideator, and not consultant, and resultant. So I suspect you're into the name thing, aren't you?
Very, 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 very seriously. You know, if you can't name it, you can't claim it.
Yes.
You know, and that's how the second part of the name. Everybody out of work call themselves consultant. Okay. No, there's a time when consultant was the highest level of function in a thing.
Yes.
So I had to separate myself from those people.
Okay.
And also the first part of the word consultant, con. Con implies con artist, con
Yes.
man,
Yes.
right? So result, we know what results are.
Yes.
In that we provide results, we make it happen.
Yes.
Ideator, I'm a psychologist by training, but I define myself as as a quantum transformation psychologist.
In other words, use numbers.
No, not just quantum physics.
Quantum physics.
Right?
Explain that.
I am influenced by three things: the psychology plus quantum physics, and also neuropsychology or neuroscience, neurology. Mm-hmm. Because we know some things about the mind, things that the mind can do, just the hardwire of the mind. Now, quantum physics, basically, some strange things happen in quantum physics, you know, in that the universe is made up of just information and energy. Mm. Matter is inferred. So you can transform things just like that. It doesn't have to be linear, it can be immediate. So ideas, information is what make things happen.
I wanted to drill down a little bit so I can understand the ideator. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, most people didn't even know a word like that exists.
All right, everything is created twice. The first time as a thought, mm-hmm. as an idea, and then in actualization. So that if mind controls body, if you can't think it, if you can't conceptualize it in your mind, that's where it begins. Marcus Garvey, without confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life. So again, the idea. If we can just, as a nation, as a family, as an individual, self-doubt, self-esteem, those are all idea-driven. How do you feel about yourself? It begins there. If you can't feel good about yourself, you can't behave well.
Yes.
So that's why idea is where we start.
Everything is done twice. What are you doing these days? How do you impact? We knew you on television, on radio, but you are an ideator and a resultant person. What are you doing these days?
Well, I have a company, and the company is called, the name of the company is LEACHIM SEMAJ and Company Limited. That's the legal name of the company because it's built. Right? The brand that we built on first was called a Job Bank.
Yes, I remember that.
But a lot of people misunderstand Job Bank because they thought we have jobs, put on. But bank don't have money put on. Bank give you return on your financial capital. Yes. I give return on human capital.
Yes.
So I do everything from hiring the right person, to terminating, to starting over, to mergers and acquisition. All of those things we did. To staff training and development and testing. So that building the value of human capital. Banks give you return on finance capital.
Yes.
We still do all of that. But then now by rebranding ourselves now as above or beyond, it is closer to what we really do. Because what we're really involved in is transformation. Transformation, so change management, which is very important. Change can't be managed, even though we call it change management. It has to be led. So we help organizations and individuals
make that transition,
deal with change.
I mean, that subject by itself is
2 days,
5 hours of conversation. Yeah. But help me when people say change management, it comes off the tongue so easily.
Yes.
But change is what people fear most. How do you go about telling a company, an individual, a group, a community that, listen, we need to move and this thing that I work for, we all this while?
That's what I've done for the longest while. One of the most important era in which I've done this is in the eve of redundancies. For the last 20, 30 years, I've been involved with a lot of redundancies. And I'm the one that meet with the staff, and what I challenge them, I said, within 1 year, you're all going to be better off than you are today. And I want you to bet me that.
Give me that lecture.
I want you to bet me that.
I'm in darkness, then lock down my work, I go home, pick me them, and I'm going to be better off now.
What redundancy does, it forces people into a space that on their own they wouldn't have gone to. The bulk of Jamaicans who own a little business because somebody redundant them. We have this capacity that we're not unleashing. Michael, we could spend the next 5 hours talking about stories that people have told me. Doc, you did right, you know. What happened? It was one quick one. This woman who was with Jampro. They had first their big redundancy. And they were supposed to send out email to people, tell them, well, we're no longer. You know, so she sent email to all the people that
position.
I'm now on my own. About 5 people interpret that statement to mean that you have your own business. Never have no business. And they contacted her, well, couldn't you do the same kind of representation for me in Trinidad? Isn't that right next? Trinidad is right next door in Barbados. Yeah. She said, Dr. SEMAJ, I'm now consulting in 5 countries. We buy a house last week, just from the deposits we get in. She hadn't planned that, you know.
Yes.
But circumstance, people just assume that's what she. At another level, a woman said that I said, tell the people at church that, you know, you're not working, you're home. But you enjoy doing it. I like to cook. Tell them, say you cook every day. Anybody want to buy a dinner from you, call you in the morning and you. So she started doing that. By the 2 weeks, every evening she getting a 2-3. By the end of 2 months, Michael, she had to go to a place and trust a stove because she needed more burners. Yes. In 3 months' time, she had to hire somebody to go market for her because
cook and do this 2 places at one time. Yes.
By the next 2 months, she had to buy a freezer because you know, so we eat chicken every day.
Yes.
So you have to have chicken in your freezer, and you have to have some fried fish and thing. Just from idea. That idea around that I am home and I cook. And I hear these stories every day and I see them. So I have no doubts at all in terms of the capacity our people have. So the notion that somebody, I take on my job, I say, hold on, go back and read your employment letter.
Yes.
It said that with 2 months, with 3 months, with 1 month, with 2 weeks notice.
Yes.
And a year job.
Yes.
All right? So the whole, that notion of freeing people and so on. So that's the kind of things that I've done over. But then now we also do it at the front end. A lot of companies don't understand that when the lawyers and the accountants sign off, so you have now merged some entities. Why would we have done it? No, that's just a start. Most companies that merge never get to the success that they had hoped to get, because of the behaviors. I have been called in few times early so they can get it right. But sometimes after they realize, we have merged, but we have 2, 3 independent silos
working. Yes.
And they haven't figured out a way how to break down those. There's a wonderful comment. I've been here 27 years and that's how we used to do it.
Yes.
It's not how we used to do it. And they don't get to the synergy that was anticipated.
Is that because early out they didn't get buy-in, they didn't sell the message right, that 1-on-1 equals 3, not 2 in a merger?
You have touched on some pieces of it. A lot of people don't understand that change cannot be managed, it has to be led.
Change cannot be managed.
It has to be led.
Explain that.
Somebody have to go in front of it and lead it. The first thing the change leaders have to do is buy the change. Who are the change leaders? And a title don't necessarily make you a leader.
Here.
And not having a title don't mean you're not a leader. So the first thing I do in anything, I identify who are the informal leaders. I used to do a test and ask people to identify now, if this company is to change, who are the 10 people who must be? And they give me the names, and the names come up. Then I used to ask another question. All right, who are the 10 people who could sabotage the change in this company? Guess what?
Same
And the same list. So I stop asking the second question. Because who change blockers are people who are seen as leaders who not lived up to their potential. So by default, they block change. So all of these, look, it's a board meeting, managing director announce the changes. And what going to be done? Immediately, managers start WhatsApp under the table. Look, damn foolish, this is man not coming again.
Yes.
By the time them leave the meeting, all right, gentlemen, we're ready, we're going to make it happen. Huh? You have the first subcommittee meeting in the bathroom. The man lick him head. Second subcommittee meeting in the parking lot. But nobody spoke back to the managing director and said, this boss, we're not so sure this can work, you know. So those are... So
Fear and intimidation?
Absolutely.
Fear and intimidation.
Whether implied or real, doesn't matter.
Yes, yes.
The brain does not make a distinction between real and imagined. The brain responds to it the same way.
I'm going to ask for a cut right there, because when we come back, I want to deal with the psychological part of job separation. And he's giving us a story how things can work out wonderfully well. But his hat as a psychologist must come into play. We'll be right back on Insight. He describes himself as a chief ideator and resultant. LEACHIM SEMAJ is his name, and psychologist by training. And we're discussing the whole issue of changes and change management, and that must be led. You have to have a lead, you know, a team that leads it and believe in it. What about those who are scared by it? Who don't see that one day they will cook food or do anything, but they have just imploded? How do you take them out of that?
We have to...
Or it's collateral?
Well, they will create collateral damage for themselves if they can, because oftentimes there are those who are, they don't see it immediately. But by the way, once you start reasoning through, there's one situation I had to show it is indeed possible. This company was going to, as so often over the last 10 years, cut back their manufacturing efforts in Jamaica and just have their sales and marketing, because it's cheaper to get the stuff elsewhere.
That's right.
All right?
Input costs, all kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So they were going to lay off about 100 people and just keep 25 sales and marketing. I was invited to be part of the process, but they didn't give me a chance to prepare the workers as such. So when the chairman started talking and the people, the anger in the room, I said, could you give me a chance, because you're trying to respond to emotion with logic. It don't work. As lots of men don't know when you're talking to your wife, you can't respond to emotion with logic.
Yes.
Want me to buy you? No. And I explained to them, I started speaking with the people, you know, about change and about their own capacities and what they can do and what their potential is and the capacity that they have that they're not actually even utilizing now. And you could feel the tension in the room reduce, and when it got down to a point, then he continued.
Yes.
The next day he called me and said he has a bigger problem because he can't find 25 people who want to stay.
Whoa.
Everybody is now seeing a bigger world out there.
Yes.
In terms of no.
So you can match up the man plan.
Well, no, but in a sense, yes.
Yes.
But it's a different kind of plan to have. Because now, look, we should start teaching our people, you know, about job creation. And we're not talking about job creation, about going out and hiring. I think our government had a problem with job creation. We're going to hire 5,000 people and hire. Small business is the cornerstone of any society. And I remember 20 years ago, I told some UWI student that the way the world is going, folks, if you're bright, when you leave UWI, you should create one job for yourself.
Yes.
And if you're very bright, you create two
Yes.
for yourself. Them cost me.
Yes.
Oh, no. I'm a UWI graduate. I'm supposed to get a job. Why?
Entitlement.
So the question, let's go back to basic. Question, you have some education, you have some skills, you have some competence. If you say no to those, you're not in my category of worker.
Yes.
You've got to beg your MP something.
Yes.
Once you have some competence and some skills and something, then I ask you, the next question is that what problem can you solve? Or what desire can you fulfill? That's not all there is, you know. What problem, you can solve a problem of a man hungry.
Yes.
You can fulfill a desire, you can make a big tune. Oh, by the way, one big tune can feed the rest of your life.
Yes.
All right, so don't, oh yeah, but we can do so. All right. Go now, after you identify what problem you can solve, or what desire you can fulfill, then you go out and find customer.
So in other words, it's a deeper look at yourself.
It's a mindset change.
Yes.
It's a mindset. So people start see options that they have. I remember one woman, classic. She was working as a financial institution. She was in marketing, and I did a personality profile for her to show what her natural skills and abilities. And one thing we saw, her type of personality does well in hospitality and so on and all of that. I said, you know, when I was growing up, you know, I had this vision of owning my own hotel. But then I realized that is foolishness. You know, But I actually thought about it, but that doesn't impossible now. There's this thing called bed and breakfast, and there's this thing, and
Airbnb.
I have this nice house, which is just me and my 2 teenage sons, because I've been divorced for a couple of years now, and the children soon gone away to school. But I could turn this into a, and then she figured how she going to finance it. She said, what? I used to sell insurance, you know, Doc, and I know if I do that well, I will go back to insurance for 2 years to get my capital. Long story short, she created one of the most visible and one of the most consistent bed and breakfast entity. Now, Airbnb has caught up now, so she just went right into that.
Yes.
But it was what her desire was, and she had that raw material around her. So she has that, and she also does other things on her own. She does editing, because she loves. So she can just stay at home and do editing.
Yes.
So I'm saying it's unleashing the potential that people have within them. That's one thing we have not done in Jamaica, yes. Unleashing the potential. When you don't unleash the potential in our people, that potential becomes destructive.
Let me throw.
So that's where the scamming now and all of those other things, because you haven't channeled the productive capacity. If male entity is not channeled from destructive to productive, if the female energy is not transformed, it becomes reproductive.
Okay.
So we know what we need to do.
Yes. Let me throw a spanning, wrench in there. Slavery. That just caused all of this. We still expect to work for somebody else. Is that the excuse still?
As you said, if you the word excuse, mindset change. If you keep blaming the past for your present reality, it means that you have not moved from the past. All right? So that slavery did something, created a problem. No, my job is to create a solution. I can't continue to blame the white man, the European, the slave masters, and so on. That don't get me any further. In the here and the now, all right? Start from where you are. A classic one day I was trying many years ago to go from Mandeville to Montego Bay via the Alps, and I was lost. I stopped and I asked the brethren, boss, how you reach Montego Bay from here? Man said, boss, if I was you, I wouldn't approach from here, so I said, boss, I hear some ease. So we have to start from where are you now?
Yes.
If a man's supposed to meet you here at the studio and him call and say him can't find the place, you're going to ask him, where are you? I'm saying, but I don't really know, You can't help him.
Yeah.
It's no him loss.
Yes.
So I'm saying that I do not blame slavery. Slavery did something to us, but if I allow that slave master to still occupy my brain and my mind and my thought by me blaming him, I don't go further.
Yes.
I will make sure it
Still controlling you.
Exactly. And in my own little way, that's why I changed my name.
Yes.
That was my signal. Michael Anthony James was the name that I was given by my parents. James even though it's my father's name, it's not really his name because that was a plantation.
name.
That was a
Yes.
plantation his great-great-grandfather was on.
Yes.
So we just like that, I just got rid of that because I just telling myself that, oh, by the way, LEACHIM Tufani is Swahili for storm or hurricane.
Yes.
I was born the night of a hurricane,
Yes.
August 17, 1951, Charlie.
Okay.
Turn LEACHIM around, turn SEMAJ around, you get LEACHIM.
Yes.
Turn James around, you get SEMAJ. So for me, I just redefine the one who came with the storm to turn things around.
Ah.
So that's what and every one of my children are named in terms of the African tradition, in terms of what I desire for them. It's so unfortunate so many people naming them children some kind of shot. Tekisha, Nyamisha, Manisha. I mean,
Yeah,
no. All of them are consistent. My youngest, second to youngest daughter, Isis,
ISIS.
the Egyptian goddess of arts and science.
Yes.
But that created a problem when she came back to Jamaica a couple of years ago to
Yes.
teach at UII.
Yes.
And her husband had sent her some funds. The bank drew down the funds and said, no, it's terrorist money. But we had to quickly educate them.
Yes.
But the idea, Egyptian goddess of arts and science, long before it. So I'm saying naming children. So that's how my approach to that. I just make sure we know we're starting right here. We're not going, and we're here. And then remember that, we were enslaved, right? It's a different thing. Kings and queens and scholars and so on were enslaved. Africa smelted steel before Europe. I started a school called Sankore because we had the University of Sankore in Timbuktu, so that I can go, I don't start in slavery. My life started long before slavery when we were kings and queens and scholars. So I just bypass that and go back to origin.
Yes.
And build on that and now continue to the creative process.
Yes. Yes, indeed. The issue of a name change,
Yes.
as you have explained yours, that creates a different concept. It makes you behave differently. It makes you think differently.
If you think
How
about
important is that?
Oh, if you think about it, in the African worldview, we all had private names and public names, and the way they name children according to, and every one of my children, I have a naming ceremony for them, and I've done so for a number of my colleagues, where I, as a man, stand before my community and accept responsibility for my children, right? In Jamaica, we still have that thing about public and private name, If you go into some community, ask, is John Wellington, who know John Wellington? I know John Wellington, Jugu,
Jugo, yes.
right? And as you go through Jamaica, as you go through life, you have a name when you're in primary school, You probably get another name when you. If you go to UWI,
Yes, you would definitely get
you get a
another.
whole other name.
Yes.
So that's part of the African tradition. Names transform as you, and
Yes.
who know you as Jugo, you realize them know you from primary school.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Then when a woman gets married, we have various options now about that because it indicates status change and differential and so on. So it has always been a part of reality. So for me, the fact that so much, but our names were anchored in the slave tradition.
That's correct.
I purposely wanted to just bypass that and to just, is the easiest way to extricate it. And believe me, LEACHIM SEMAJ and Michael James is not the same.
No.
Somebody, every now and then, there are many people who still, oh, Mr. James, I just look at them with, with pity.
And say, you thank God you're not like them.
Yeah. So that is very important for me, and then so I've given my children a fresh start, so to speak.
Yes.
Now, if they want to go back to, then that's theirs. I mean, I did my part. So I do believe in the same way when a person, when a country becomes independent, most time it changes its
Change the
name.
And we're going to
And
change.
the flag is part of your name.
That's right. And we're going to make some changes because when we come back, we want to hear about the male situation. This man used to do a program called
Man Talk.
Man Talk. So I'm going to hear
need
the
it.
man go and talk. I'll be right back on Insight. Welcome back to Insight. Our special guest, LEACHIM SEMAJ. I really want to buttonhole him on this issue of a male crisis? I don't know. Everywhere you go, the educational institutions, you have fewer males. Even a recent drive that the police have to invite people to come and join the police force, more females than males. They're doing better in the exams. What will happen eventually? Dr. SEMAJ, are we in a crisis?
I have been talking about this for over 20 years, you know, and I remember the intelligentsia, to a large extent, would chastise myself and Professor Errol Miller for raising the issue. We have a gender crisis in Jamaica, but it's not a woman crisis. It's a male. And we have consistently not addressed it. There were some structural weaknesses built into our society, you know, in terms of males were the ones that had the potential for challenging the slave masters, and then the colonizers, and then the... Do you realize that there are 7 all-male high schools, but there are 14 all-female high schools?
Didn't know that.
Do you realize that where the plantations were best established in Jamaica, there are no high schools, there are very few high schools in those parishes, where the banana and the sugar was to a large extent, because no, that's a distraction. We wanted just people for the plantations, all right? So we had that structural thing built in. Now, Errol Miller has a very classic book where he points out the history of Jamaican education, especially the high school system. Education used to be the first vehicle that black people used to challenge the status quo.
Through the church, the Bible.
Yeah, yes. And then you go to college, teachers' college and so on. Look at that. Teaching was dominated by men. And you go from teaching and so on to politics and to... But then they changed the rules about teaching, literally, in terms of the admission of men to teachers' colleges. It didn't just happen by accident. Teaching was transformed because too many men were using teaching and education as the vehicle to upward mobility. We now have a situation. There was an article published, the cover story of The Economist, September 28, 1996. It says the biggest problem the Western world will have: males, young, uneducated, unemployable, unmarried. They called it because they saw the trend. We have epitomized that. The under-socialization of our males. Now, we have had... I spoke a couple of weeks ago at the gender studies launch, and somebody brought me in at the last minute to be one of the speakers because they had 7 speakers and they were all women. Because gender is still women they're talking about.
Yes.
They haven't admitted that, listen, there's a male problem in Jamaica. No, if we don't fix it, they're going to come kill us. Because when male energy is not transformed, it becomes destructive. And I've been speaking about this. I remember once I was at a school and the students had to put on a little skit before the thing. And they were singing, Sammy plant piece of corn, and Sammy was Samantha. Because all the participants were... So I abandoned my presentation as a teacher. You couldn't get even one. The boy's not interested. No, it's our job to interest them. If you don't interest them, you can't build the competence in you. So we have allowed them to opt out. The result, male energy, if it is not harnessed to be productive, it becomes destructive. When we had that show called Man Talk, it was such a wonderful... One of the things that we did, like, if you remember, we had a bar as a set.
Done at a bar.
The TV station objected to that because it's not a bar. No, so where else men sit and talk? The studio audience was some taxi man we get to come and stand and play domino.
Yes.
And just like in a bar, when the argument sweet you get up and come against the bar and buy out the argument.
Yes, yes.
So eventually they came around, right, it works, you know. We did so many conversations that we engage men in thinking. One of the things that one night I had, so men with non-traditional careers on, we didn't know exactly what. 5 men with non-traditional career. One was a chef, one was a fashion designer, one was a model, one was a whatever. You know what they all in common? They all went to art.
Went to heart.
So we didn't realize Hart was actually playing that role. The one who was a fashion, was a model. He used to be involved in the place with the section where the fixed machines and so on. But when the women came up with new designs, they would ask him to model it.
And
And the man said,
just take on that.
there was a man who was now a big-time cosmetologist. How it came about? He used to deal with a hairdresser lady. And when she come home at night and it was him. He was told what to do and him.
Yes, yes.
But she said, boy, you're nice, you know, boy. You know what you do, you know. When you go hard cosmetology. So the man go. The man seemed like it so much that him signed up for the day class and the evening class one time. So we get, you understand me? So we had that, we were creating that. Non-traditional careers were men.
Yes.
So I'm saying we have not addressed that issue yet.
You speak to the fundamentals, how it was organized. So men faded away.
Yes.
The situation Rex Nettleford had mentioned, the whole effort mentality, where we take care of the daughter and then the boy
Yes.
come after.
Yes.
That's
But that's also a part of it because, and I know in many families, not too long ago, whereby they say, the boy will take care of himself, man. The boy will take care of him, he must survive. But we have to make care with the girl and we send her to go to school and we do this and we take care of her and so on. Now, it has come in some cities, but some families still practice another tradition where they say that, look, girls don't need to go that far because some man will come and take care of them.
yes, yes.
But once on my radio show, Night Doctor, and I asked the audience, what do you tell your boys to ensure their survival? And every caller told me what they tell their daughter. I tell my daughter to go to school and study hard, make sure she can pass her exam and get a good job, so the man come take, so the man take liberty with her. And they kept everybody tell what they tell the daughter, but nobody tell what they tell the son. The way I totally epitomize that, my brethren Tony Rebel.
Yes, sir.
It's a wonderful song. Be careful to tell the little children. Make sure there's something to hurt them. My daughter may be a doctor.
The next prime minister.
What him say about the son? Me no want my son turn the gunman. That epitomizes how we have not ideated
Yes.
the boys into a positive future. Me no want you turn the gunman. Me no want you. My daughter could be a doctor. My daughter could be the prime minister.
Negative, positive.
Yes. So that we consciously need to give the boys options and role models and responsibility. At home, many homes still to this day, your daughter is 6, you teach her to wash her underwear and take care of herself. Your son is 26 and you wash my underwear for him same way. Your daughter is 8. She comes inside and set the table. Your son is 10, him outside and go and play till we call him for dinner. So the same model we got the girls to be responsible, we should have done the same thing for the boys. Induce responsibility on them.
Is it too late, or would it create such a paradigm shift that you talk about change management, it would blow off the top?
No, but it has to be led. So that's why I know 2 things. We have to hold the parents accountable, hold the parents responsible, give them the training. We also have to get media involved. Media is such a powerful tool. I'm fully convinced that I don't think any media house is fully committed to national development. National development. So that...
What do you consider to be national development? It sounds like government. So.
Well, I heard a very interesting thing on BBC just coming down here, and they point out that the problem with the public sector is that it's totally committed to profit. The private sector and the public sector is now moving into populism.
Yes, yes.
So it's only the artistic sector is left to really do something. What about national development? We having a vision for the kind of society in which we want to live, and how are the things that we are doing contributing to that positive outcome? That's what I believe in national development. What is the kind of society in which we wish to live, and how everything that I do, how does it contribute towards it or not?
Do we have that stomach in a partisan, political, divided country?
That's the problem. Because if the government does something and you disagree with it, by default, they say you're the opposition party.
I am looking at a situation now where there's going to be a crime summit.
Yes.
It's coming out of the opposition camp to do it. Can we ever get national if that happens?
No, either side, either way. Yeah. That's our problem with a tribalized society, that even things in our best interest, because of where it originates, then it becomes tribalized, right? So that is a major. We have to find. I define myself also, as a public intellectual, which is a legitimate concept. Somebody who's used their intellect in light of informing, educating, uplifting the public. I have no partisan interest. But the partisan forces have a vested interest in pigeonholing you. Along the same line, we're soon going to reach a point where professional, competent Jamaicans will refuse to take part in government institutions like boards, because of how boards have become tribalized and what they have done. And you stand reputational damage because you were on a board when the PNP was in power. Once the GLP, all those persons are taken off and another set of even from the executive director down. But does that mean the person was? So we have some problems at that highest level. Competence, and that persons can express ideas, and you are not. First and foremost, I am a Jamaican. I am committed. I live here by choice.
Yes.
Many of us have options, and part of why I resigned from Cornell University, I took an 80% cut in salary to come back to Jamaica in 1979. Why? The dominant motive, I wanted my children to have the same childhood that I had.
And we're going to delve into that, because when we come back, we want to know from whence did this man come? What prepared him for all of this? We'll be right back on Insight. Welcome back to Insight. The greatest part of Insight is when you start delving into people's personal life, And Dr. LEACHIM SEMAJ is our special guest. Let me ask you the toughest question of your life, because the one that people know into HR and psychology like to ask people. Who is Dr. LEACHIM SEMAJ? Describe him to us.
Well, was it the one who came at the storm to turn things around? That's an easy question for me.
That's an easy one for you.
I'm a Kingstonian in the truest sense of the word. You see where we're sitting here now? We're born across this, Victoria Jubilee Hospital.
BJHS.
I went to Central Branch.
Okay.
Right? Kingston. Used to live on Studley Park Road. I walked to school.
Yes.
Then I moved across to Hitchens Street. 31 Hitchens Street.
Yes.
That's right across from Racecourse.
Yes.
And then I went to Kingston College.
Osh.
So
you know I was going to blow you away with that.
Which I walked down to.
Yes, yes.
The first 15 years of my life was spent literally within walking distance of where we are now.
Okay.
The critical issue, my mother made it clear to me that education is the only option I have. She don't have money for give me. And guess what? I believed her. I took it very, very serious. And the result is that I got a government scholarship out of the Common Entrance exam. Mm-hmm. Now, that made a difference in my life.
Yes.
Because my mother was telling me that this, and when I went to primary school, all right, back to school coming up September, it means that she would need lunch every other day to save money towards the books. But when I got a government scholarship,
paid for.
Back then, it was a serious thing.
Yes.
It meant books were paid for, clothes, transportation, lunch at school was paid for, everything. And if where I live was far, I was walking distance from KC, If it was far, they would pay for boarding. So that's part of this where I become totally committed to poor people, because it's poor people money pay taxes. Rich people don't pay taxes. It's poor people money pay taxes. It's not government money. It's poor people money. And that committed me to Jamaica.
Siblings?
Again, interesting. Single parent on one side. My mother had one child, me, and I said that's her dharma. Her purpose in life was to.
Yes.
My father migrated when I was 7. But interestingly, he wrote me every month and included a money order.
Yes.
So when your father writes you every month, the letter go and say, how are you at school? What are you going to answer? I am fine. And yeah.
Yes.
So I had a 10-year conversation with my father.
Yes.
Right? Now, he died a couple of years ago, and me and the rest of siblings, I have one brother and 2 sisters there. But this man, the only certificate my father had on his wall was from the Jamaica Police Training School.
He was a cop?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the only certificate. But my brother also has a PhD, and my 2 sisters a master's degree. So here's a man who all him do, him go police training school, and then he migrated, and then him started like a business in New York and so on. But then he produced 2 sons who with PhDs and 2 daughters. So that to me, I'm involved in Go GSAT, and in terms of that online educational program and learning hub. And I remember we got a call that Dennis O'Brien wanted to talk to us about what we were doing, and because they were interested in it. And somebody gave me a hint and said, O'Brien don't like the long argument. Let's get straight to the point. And so my partner, Dr. Shalit Ashman, we went to Miami to meet with him, and he asked, but we don't see where you're making any money from this. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? And we said that we are testimony that education is a transformative force. My mother used to work in a factory down Princess Street. Dr. Ashman, mother used to sell a market. If it wasn't for education, she'd have the stall next to her mother.
Yes.
If it was for education, I have no idea where I would be.
Yes. You'd be not honed, you could be destructive.
Exactly. Right? And in one generation, we went from poverty to PhD. We want to do the same for the rest of Jamaica.
Yes.
That you can go from poverty to PhD. We can't guarantee you riches or so on, but if we educate you, you can transform it into other things.
Then you can make it.
So that is what I am about, transformation. How can I'm not looking for people to follow me or to do what I do. I just want to free people with their potential. So I'm a psychologist, but then in 1979, Aikwe Armagh gave me a copy of his brand new book called The Healers.
Yes.
And in the book it says, anybody can heal one person, that's nothing. The real work of a healer is to heal a nation. So I said, but hold on, as a psychologist in the office, that takes too long. As a teacher in a classroom. But the real force is what happened in the dance hall and on media. So I built a sound system. Because when you chat over a mic, people respond.
Yes.
And then persons used to say to me, but why have a sound system? My argument then was because I can't afford a radio station. But radio station now...
Easy.
yes, really.
That's right.
When I had the option to be on radio, I wrote a proposal. And I done tapping, and I want to use music and talk to heal people.
Yes.
Literally. That's why I told them. Music and talk to heal people. And that's why, remember that you were the one that gave me 2 nights of training how to use the board, because I can run a sound system.
Yes.
You see that night in 1989, boss, when you signed off from your beautiful jazz show.
Oh, yes, yes.
Can you imagine we have about 50 radio stations now, not even one little jazz, but anyway, that's another program. When you signed off at 1 o'clock, 12 to 1 was
12
your,
to 1,
right?
yes.
And then you left me in the studio. I think you stood there for about 10 minutes. If you didn't look around, boss, it's a terrifying experience,
Yes.
knowing that I am in charge of this console and everything.
Yes.
And then you left. And then the building, the only other person in the building was a guard around the front. And I'm on my own,
Yes.
right? But the notion that you can use, I take media serious. Because what you are, when you have a mic and the ears of the people, you're responsible.
Yes.
It's a powerful responsibility.
Engage your mind.
So that's what I am about, and my thing. For me, family is critical. I take 100% involvement in my children's life. Because some men would know what they're missing. In January, one of my daughters, my second daughter, I went up to New York when she was now being installed as a judge, civil court judge.
Welcome to our world. I have a sister who is one of those things.
But in her case, what's so special about her case is she was expelled from 2 schools in Jamaica because she don't take chat from nobody.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Wonder where she got that.
I have no idea. But you see, as I say to other fathers, parents I could have give up on her. When the second time a principal called you to tell you come for your treatment because they don't want them in the school, some parents would have give up.
Yes, are gone.
Yeah.
Negative.
But I understand her personality, I try and she is now a judge.
Help me, because church, was that ever involved in your?
Yes. Because I went to St. Matthew's Church in Alman Town.
Yes.
But everything I do very serious, and as I inquire, I eventually started to see the contradictions in Christianity as it just came down to us. And I tell people that Rastafari was the closest thing to my personal belief.
Yes.
Because, and with Rastafari, religion for me is like a school. School is not some place you go to live. School you go to study, to learn, and then you graduate. Rastafari helped me to see God looking back at me in my own image and likeness. But then I got to the point where now I can look in the mirror and literally see that I am made in the image and likeness of God. I don't need to go through anybody to see God. I don't need to. Religion is not the same thing as spirituality. There are persons who need religion. Religion is a series of rituals and rules. It's a club. And once you join the club, you play by those rules.
Yes.
But spirituality, you communicate directly with the universe.
And you can see through nature.
Absolutely. I say, love is my religion and nature is my church.
Question, you went away, you migrated, you went to school.
I never migrated.
Well, you
Hold on, let me say, my mother got a job working in white people house in New York. And when I finished lower 6, I realized it was pointless for me to go to upper 6 because I would never have a student loan bureau there. What am I going to do?
Yes, yes.
Without asking anybody, I decided not to go to upper 6 and I joined my mother in New York. I like my mother's narrative. She said I used 25 cents to make life. I arrived in New York on the Saturday. I was age 16. I asked my mother for money to buy a newspaper. She gave me 25 cents. I saw a job for a chemical lab technician. I had O-level chemistry, physics, maths, admat. I applied for the job on the Monday. One job I applied for now. I got an interview on the Wednesday and I started working on the Thursday.
Okay.
And then at the end of the month, I applied to City College and got in. So I worked from 9 to 5 every day. So I respect people who go to school, night school. It took me 5 years to finish the first degree.
Yes.
But then I got a scholarship to do my PhD based on my competence.
Yes, yes.
So it's education was what is all the way. Education from my mother telling me that she don't want the money to give me. Right? So that decision to not to go to sixth form, to go join my mother and get the 25 cents for buy a newspaper for look at work.
From newspaper to PhD.
Yes, yes.
Question. There was a time you were not a bald head. Give me the thing that you said it was the closest thing that you could see yourself through.
Yes.
And it's Afrocentric and people can
Totally.
understand that. Did that go against the grain of your mother? How did you struggle with that?
It was totally. When I personified myself through Rastafari, it was my mother's biggest disappointment. But here's the paradox about that. the only album she ever asked me to buy for her was Bob Marley, Natty Dread.
There you go.
Bob Marley, Natty Dread. She personified that album, and she, and it was such a close thing to her heart. Eventually, and then the other disappointment she had was when I resigned from Cornell and came back to Jamaica.
Yes.
How could you do something like that?
Mad, I remember 79, 80 was a wicked time, you know.
Hello, the dollar was 2 for 1, you know, when I came back, you know.
But the election thing
Was-
on the, yes, people are drop out like fly every night. Yes.
I mean, I some things between 79 and say 83, the amount of people who were running and leaving house. Mona House was $30,000. Who passes was $40,000. There were persons who literally borrow money from the university and use it for the down payment.
Yes, yes.
Just in case they want to run,
Yes.
they can just carry the key and drop it off.
Yes.
There are people who are just doing that,
Yes, yes.
right? I was coming in the other direction.
Give me, I want to stay on the hair thing. You made a decision to shed it.
That was
Tell me
a
about that.
hard decision. For 27 years, I had dreadlocks. It took me about 5 years of really, because I came to the realization that dreadlocks as a visual cue, that's personified you, and people now judged you
By that.
by that. But then now dreadlocks no longer has any significance.
Spiritual
It has no spiritual nor Afrocentric significance.
That's right. Can
It
wear
had-
earring and lipstick.
Anything.
Yes.
So that I felt harder being identified with somebody with dreadlocks when I have no control of that self-definition. So then I decided to just to cut my hair low, and I cut it. And I remember I dropped off something at my friend Carolyn Cooper's house, and she said, "LEACHIM, just shave it off completely." And I did it. And I felt naked. Shave off my hair completely. But then I said that not all of us have perfectly shaped head.
Yes.
That's why the purpose of hair is to hide that. But then I've grown into that now.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean, my identification now, and there are many people disappointed who just saw me as on my hair. How can you be so fickle to see me in terms of my hair? You know? But it was another evolution.
Yes.
I remember the first time when I sent my children picture of the new persona, they said, "Daddy, we all have Photoshop on our computers, all right? Because none of my children had ever seen me with, they just knew their father with dreadlocks
Yes, yes.
for 27 years. But then it was a hard decision because, and a number of other persons who are in my age group who have dreadlocks, they said that they wish they were brave enough to do what I did.
Yes.
Because the reasons why they became dread and rasta probably no longer valid.
Yes, yes.
But the identities associated with it, they would feel like people going to say them sell out and them. But the locks no longer has any meaning beyond, even if it has meaning for you, but the society no longer.
That's correct. No,
Because we have now locticians and loctologists and bathroom dread and
The song say you don't have to be a dreadlock.
to be rasta. Yeah, yeah.
Sir, it really was a pleasure. I wish we had more time, but who knows? Part 2 must be coming up.
We give
sometime.
thanks, my brother. We
All
give
right.
thanks.
Thank you. LEACHIM SEMAJ, the man who was born to make changes by the storm. Charlie. That's how it was. You know, them say 94 for some never born, but he was around then. Want to thank you for, checking it out, and here's hoping you have a great day.